Awesome. Good evening. My name is Colin White. I am a freshman biology and Spanish double major with a public health minor on the pre-med track from Memphis, Tennessee. And today we will be talking about mental health. So for my mini health talk, I really wanted to talk about mental health. I just really felt it was important to me to talk about mental health. That's something um, that I've really benefited with by talking about. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with today. So the title of this is called "Mental Health is Mental Wealth." I think to be a really well-rounded and just outstanding individual all around, your mental health is going to be a priority for you. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So what is mental health? Mental health encompasses our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, make healthy choices. Mental health is important in every stage of our life. So literally anywhere, any point of our life, all the way through childhood to adulthood, mental health is important. It's important to take care of our minds. Our minds are beautifully created and crafted. So if we're not taking care of it, it's going to cause some problems, which I'm going to talk about right here in this next slide. So why is mental health important? Mental and physical health are equally important components of our overall health. For example, depression increases the risk for many types of physical health problems, particularly long-lasting conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and a stroke. Similarly, the presence of chronic conditions can increase the risk of mental illness. So our mental health and our physical health really go hand in hand. So if we're having a great physical health, but our mental health isn't intact, vice versa, that can create some problems. So it's really important that we're taking care of and maintaining both our mental and our physical well-being. Next, so what kind of factors contribute to our mental health problems? So I've listed a few here. Obviously, there's a lot more than what's here on the slide, but some of the major ones are biological factors, such as our genes, our brain chemistry. So our DNA composition, our makeup. So we could have some underlying conditions of our mental health lying in those areas. But a big one in particularly is our life experiences, such as trauma or abuse. So obviously, like physical abuse, social abuse, emotional abuse, all of those things can be affecting our mental health. Or if you have a developing PTSD or stuff like that, that can also affect your mental health. So our life experiences, things that we go through it on the day to day, that can definitely take a toll on our mental health. So it's important that we're recognizing those things early on, so we don't have a dwindling mental health on the on the ladder. The last thing over here, it says family history of mental health problems. So you could also have different features in your family and your traits being passed down to you, where mental health problems might arise. So definitely reach out and get to know and see if you have those developing experiences in your family history. So here's some of the benefits of a positive mental health. So first is to realize their full potential, our full potential, really. So we can realize our full potential as ourselves and who we are. That also goes in with our emotional intelligence. So being an emotionally intelligent person requires us to be realize of our full potential. That means we have to have a positive mental health. Next is be able to cope with stressors in our life. We all have different stressors, things that trigger us. So it's really important that we recognize and cope with those skills. Next is to be able to work productively. I know for me, myself, I'm not the most productive person in the world. I know that I'm not the best person in the world to be around if my mental health is not intact. So when my mental health is and I'm having a positive mental health behavior, I know that I'm being my productive self and working the best of my ability. Next is to make meaningful contributions to the community. So obviously, like if your mental health isn't intact, you're gonna have some negative mindsets and negative thoughts. So you're not gonna be able to make that positive and meaningful contribution to society. So making sure our mental health is in a positive space is gonna be very important. Next, so how can we maintain a positive mental health? So ways we can do that is getting professional help when you need it. So if we feel like our mental health is taking a toll, go reach out, get those connections, and reach out to people. It's very important that we have somebody. Have an accountability buddy, having somebody, a friend, somebody you can call on, or even just a family member. Next is connecting and staying with others, which is pretty much what that means. Next is staying positive. Getting physical activity is going to be very important. Helping others out. getting us enough sleep. Sleep is very important. If you're not going to sleep on time, if you don't have a set sleep schedule, recommend just laying down, taking some time, taking naps sometimes. Naps are great. Developing coping skills. We're going to talk about some coping skills later on the PowerPoint slide, but those are all very important things that we can maintain a positive mental health. The next thing I really want to hit on and really want to focus on is Black mental health. So we're going to get into that right now. So here are some of the challenges of Black mental health. So the Black community as a whole suffers from an increased rate of mental health concerns, including anxiety and depression. The increased incident of psychological difficulties in the Black community is related to the lack of access to appropriate culturally responsive mental health care. Prejudice and racism inherit the daily environment of Black individuals, and obviously there's a historical trauma intact on the Black community by the medical field. So that alone are some of the challenges that we face when it comes to our own mental health. So that is some of the reasons why in the Black community there's this large stigma, that which we're going to talk about in the next coming slides, and just the reasons why we have this misconception about mental health and we don't take it as seriously, just because some of the challenges we already face as a community as a whole. So here's continue on this next slide. So the adult Black community is 20% more likely to experience some serious mental health problems than those of our white counterparts. I'm sorry, excuse me. And why? So our research shows that exposure to violence, incarceration, and involvement in the foster care system can increase the chance of developing mental illness. And historically, the Black communities was and continues to be disadvantaged in mental health through subjugation of trauma, through enslavement, oppression, colonialism, racism, and segregation. So, for example, 25% of Black people seek mental health treatment when needed, compared to almost 40% of white people. That is a huge disparity right then and there. And obviously that root stems from the mental health stigma among Black people, which can be traced all the way back to slavery. At this time, it was commonly thought that enslaved people were not sophisticated enough to develop depression, anxiety, or mental health disorders. So now we need to address the stigma. So obviously there's a large stigma going around in the Black community, and it's often difficulty acknowledging our psychological difficulties. But obviously useful strategies, including religious coping and methods such as pastoral guidance and prayer, are often the preferred coping methods. So we kind of turn to that religious route instead of turning towards our science and the care behind it. So that's also another issue and a problem within the Black community that we have to address. So if we're able to destigmatize mental health, it can be achieved by helping people, especially in the Black community, to understand that mental health is an essential part of our well-being, just as a healthy diet, just as sleep, just as exercise. So our mental health is very important, just in our overall well-being. So we have to really destigmatize the thought that our mental health isn't of priority and the utmost importance. These ideas often lead people to believe that mental health conditions of personal weakness due to negative stereotypes, instability, and attitudes of rejection. So you'll hear all the time to man up, toughen up, hide our emotion, bottle up our emotion, but that can take a toll on our mental health. So it's important that we address those stereotypes and things and stigmas surrounding mental health. Because when people need help, we need to allow people to have those coping skills and mechanisms to be able to seek those help. So now I want to talk about some different self-care tips and tricks that really work. So obviously in these pictures you see depicted some healthy diet, obviously journaling, you see some listening to music, going to the gym. So all different ways we can cope and do better with our self-care and mental health overall. So here's some self-care ideas. I'm gonna go through some of them here. So obviously exercising. So I love going to the gym. That is a happy place for me. Like I feel confident in the gym. I love being able to work out, go on a run, do things of that nature. Healthy eating also going to promote uh a nice mental health and a balanced overall well-being of yourself. So if you're whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. So that's very important to maintain that. Sleep is very big too. So if you're not getting sleep, it's going to take a toll on your mental health. Like your brain needs time to reset. So getting sleep and maintaining a decent sleep schedule is going to be important. Setting goals and priorities. So having a schedule, having a plan. So being productive in that kind of way is also going to be good for your mental health. You're going to have a positive attitude going to things. And just staying connected, having friends, having a circle around you. So things of that nature are all great things. I know for me personally, what's benefited me the most when it comes to my mental health has definitely been journaling. I love to journal, writing down my thoughts and feelings, stuff like that. Because sometimes it's hard to express in other ways. So journaling has been a really great tip and trick for me. So here I'm gonna end it here with some relevant questions that you could consider. So one is, should schools do a better job of prioritizing their students' mental health? For example, implementing mental health days or allow students to take mental health days? And two, how can we as a community continue to destigmatize mental health and therapy as something that isn't a bad thing? So those are things you can be thinking about after my presentation today. So here's my works cited, and that is really the end of the presentation. I thank you for listening.